The idea of the missing link is powerful. It conjures up a specific image. A creature, half ape, half human, caught in the middle of an evolutionary leap. It's a movie monster, it's the star of 100 museum dioramas, it's the thing people always ask about when you talk about evolution. Where is it? Why haven't we found it? And the simple answer is, we have. We've found lots of them. The problem isn't with the fossils, the problem is with the question. The idea of a single missing link is based on a total misunderstanding of how evolution works. We've been looking for the wrong thing. And because we're looking for the wrong thing, we can't see the amazing evidence that's been sitting right in front of us all along. Let's get rid of the old idea first. The missing link comes from a very old way of thinking called the Great Chain of Being. It's the idea that life is arranged on a ladder. At the bottom, you have simple things like worms. Then you go up through fish, reptiles, mammals, apes, and then at the very top you have us, humans. In this view, evolution is a straight line, a march of progress from a primitive ape to a modern human. So, if that's true, there must be a creature that is exactly halfway along that line, the link in the chain. But that's not how evolution works, at all. Evolution is not a ladder. It's a bush, a giant, sprawling, messy bush with thousands of branches. One branch might lead to chimpanzees. Another branch might lead to gorillas. And another one, a long, long time ago, split off and eventually, after many more smaller branches and dead ends, led to us. We didn't evolve from chimpanzees. That's maybe the biggest misconception out there. Humans and chimpanzees share a common ancestor. Think of it like a family tree. You and your cousin are related. You both share a set of grandparents, but you didn't evolve from your cousin. Your cousin didn't evolve from you. You both branched off from the same point, your shared grandparents. Go back far enough, about 6 or 7 million years, and you'll find a creature that was the grandparent species to both humans and chimps. That creature wasn't a chimp, and it wasn't a human. It was something else. And its descendants went in at least 2 different directions. One branch led to the chimpanzee and bonobo line. The other branch led to the hominin line, the group that includes us and all of our extinct relatives. So, we aren't looking for a link in a chain. We're looking for fossils close to that branching point. And then we're looking for fossils that show the changes along our specific branch. Scientists don't call them missing links. They call them transitional fossils or transitional forms. The name sounds a bit academic, but the idea is simple. A transitional fossil is just a fossil of an organism that shows a mix of traits. It has some features that look like its ancestors and some new features that its descendants will have. Every single fossil is technically transitional because all life is in a state of transition. But some fossils are especially important because they show us a major shift in the making. The shift from swimming to walking, the shift from reptile to mammal, or in our case, the shift from a tree-climbing ape-like ancestor to a ground-dwelling, tool-making human. And we have found so many of them. We have a beautiful, if incomplete, photo album of our family's past. The missing links aren't missing. They're in museum drawers all over the world. We just need to learn how to see them for what they really are. Let's go back in time, to the period right after our branch split from the chimp branch. We're talking 6 to 7 million years ago in Africa. What would we be looking for? We'd be looking for a creature that wasn't quite a chimp ancestor, and not quite a human ancestor, but had a foot in both worlds. We'd look for an ape-like creature that was maybe, just maybe, starting to walk on 2 legs. Meet Sahelanthropus chidensis, nicknamed Tumai. This fossil skull was found in Chad and dates back about 7 million years. It's one of the oldest relatives we've ever found, and it's confusing in the most wonderful way. Well, its brain is tiny, about the size of a chimpanzee's. It has massive brow ridges, like a gorilla. In many ways, it looks like an ancient ape. But then you look at the bottom of the skull. There's a hole where the spinal cord connects to the brain. It's called the foramen magnum. In an ape that walks on all fours, like a chimp, that hole is at the back of the skull, angled backward. But in a creature that walks upright like you, the hole is at the base of the skull, pointing straight down. This allows the head to balance on top of an upright spine. Tumai's foramen magnum is positioned underneath the skull. This suggests, strongly, that it was beginning to walk upright 7 million years ago. A creature with an ape's brain, an ape's face, but with the posture of a human. If that isn't a link, what is? And Tumai isn't alone. Around 6 million years ago, we have Orrin tugenensis found in Kenya. We don't have a skull for this one, but we have a femur, a thigh bone, And the shape of that femur, especially the knob at the top that fits into the hip socket, is much more like a human's than an ape's. It's built to bear the weight of an upright body. Again, the evidence points to bipedalism, walking on two legs, as one of the very first things that set our branch apart. But the real game changer, the fossil that blew up all the old ideas, was Ardipithecus ramidus, or Ardi. Ardi lived about 4.4 million years ago in what is now Ethiopia. The team that found her spent 15 years carefully excavating and reassembling her skeleton. What they found was a mosaic, a creature that didn't fit any of the neat categories. Scientists used to think that our ancestor was basically a chimpanzee that stood up and walked out of the forest onto the savanna. Ardi proved that was wrong. Her pelvis was short and broad, reshaped to support her organs while walking upright. She was definitely bipedal on the ground, but her feet were strange. She had a grasping big toe sticking out to the side like a thumb, perfect for climbing trees. So here was a creature that could walk on two legs on the ground, but was also a capable climber. And her hands weren't like a chimp's or a gorilla's. They didn't have the specialized knuckles for knuckle walking. She walked on her palms when she was in the trees, more like an ancient monkey. Which already tells us that the common ancestor wasn't a knuckle-walking chimp, it was something different. And the first hominins weren't savanna dwellers. They lived in woodlands, spending time both on the ground and in the trees. Ardi isn't a link between a chimp and a human. She is something else entirely, a snapshot of a unique experiment in how to move. She shows a mix of ancient and new traits that we never would have predicted. And she is a perfect transitional form. After Ardi's time, the story continues with a very famous group, the Australopithecines. These are the southern apes, and they lived in Africa from about 4 million to 2 million years ago. And the most famous of all is Australopithecus afarensis, the species of the Lucy skeleton. When Lucy was discovered in 1974, she was a revelation. She was a small creature, maybe 3.5 feet tall. Her brain was still small, not much larger than a chimp's. Her arms were long, suggesting she was still comfortable in the trees. Her fingers were curved, good for gripping branches. But from the waist down, she was a different story. Her pelvis was clearly shaped for walking upright. Her knee joint was angled in a way that would allow her to stride efficiently. She was, without a doubt, fully bipedal when on the ground. We even have fossilized footprints from her species, the Laetoli footprints, preserved in volcanic ash from 3.6 million years ago. They show a family of maybe a father, mother, and child walking across a plain. Their feet had arches, their big toes were in line with the other toes, not sticking out like Ardi's. They were walking just like we do. So here you have Lucy, a creature with an ape-sized brain and a body that walks like a human. This was a critical discovery. It proved that bipedalism, walking upright, came long before big brains. For millions of years, our ancestors were walking around on two legs, but still had small, ape-like brains. Lucy is one of the most important missing links ever found. She connects an ape-like past with a human-like future, all in one little skeleton. And the Australopithecines weren't a single file line, they were a diverse group. There were many different species, some big and robust, others small and slender like Lucy. It was a time of evolutionary experimentation. Our family tree was bushy, with lots of different hominin species living in Africa at the same time. Most of them went extinct. They were dead-end branches. But one of them, we don't know exactly which one, gave rise to the next major player on the stage, our own genus, Homo. Around 2.5 million years ago, something new appeared, Homo habilis, the handyman. The name comes from the fact that fossils of this species are often found with the very first simple stone tools. The Homo habilis had a bigger brain than Lucy, a leap of about 30%. Its face was smaller and less projecting. It was still a small creature, with long arms, but the combination of a bigger brain and the first hint of technology was a major turning point. The Homo habilis is a beautiful transition between the Australopithecines and the later, more human-like members of our genus. It's a link between a biology-driven existence and a culture-driven one, and then came Homo erectus. This species was a true globetrotter. Appearing in Africa around 2 million years ago, Homo erectus was different. Taller, with long legs and short arms. Its body proportions were much more like ours. Its brain was significantly larger than Homo habilis, and it continued to grow over the species' long existence. Homo erectus made more sophisticated tools. It learned to control fire, and, most importantly, it was the first of our relatives to leave Africa, spreading all across Asia and parts of Europe. It was an incredibly successful and long-lived species, surviving for well over 1.5 million years. That's at least 5 times longer than our own species, Homo sapiens, has been around. Homo erectus is a vital link. It bridges the gap between the small-brained, small-bodied early hominins and the large-brained humans that came later. It was a wanderer and an innovator, the species that truly set our lineage on the path to becoming a global force. From groups of Homo erectus, or a similar species called Homo heidelbergensis, the family tree branched again. In Europe and the Middle East, they evolved into the Neanderthals. In Asia, they evolved into the Denisovans. And in Africa, they evolved into us, Homo sapiens. Neanderthals are probably the most misunderstood of all our relatives. The stereotype is of a brutish, stupid caveman. The reality is that they were incredibly intelligent and resourceful. Their brains were, on average, slightly larger than ours. They were expert hunters, made complex tools, cared for their sick and elderly, buried their dead, and likely had some form of language. They were not a failed experiment. They were a successful human species that thrived in the harsh ice ages of Europe for hundreds of thousands of years. They are not our direct ancestors. They are our cousins. We share a common ancestor, likely Homo heidelbergensis, who lived around 500,000 years ago. For a time, after Homo sapiens left Africa, we lived on the same planet as Neanderthals and Denisovans. We met them, and we know for a fact that we interbred with them. This isn't speculation. It's written in our DNA, so if we have found all these fossils, why do people still say the link is missing? There are a couple of reasons. The first is the nature of fossilization itself. Becoming a fossil is an incredibly rare event. Think of every animal that has ever lived on Earth. A ridiculously tiny fraction of 1% of them ended up as fossils. An animal has to die in the perfect place. It has to be buried quickly by sediment, protected from scavengers and the elements. The conditions in the ground have to be just right for minerals to slowly replace the bone. Then, millions of years later, the rock layers containing that fossil have to be pushed back up to the surface without being destroyed. And finally, someone has to be lucky enough to walk by and find it. The fossil record is like a book with 99% of its pages ripped out. We only have fragments. We don't have a perfect frame-by-frame movie of evolution. We have snapshots, but the snapshots we have tell a clear story. We can see the general trend. We can see the small-brained bipedal apes. We can see the emergence of larger brains and tool use. We can see the development of modern human bodies. The gaps are real, but they are expected. And every year, paleontologists find new fossils that fill in more of those gaps, adding more pages to the book. The miracle isn't that there are gaps in the fossil record. The miracle is that we have a fossil record at all. The other reason the missing link idea won't die is because it's a moving target. Every time scientists find a fossil that fills a gap, some people just point to the new, smaller gaps on either side of it and say, "See? Still missing." If you have fossils A and C and someone demands to see the link between them, you might eventually find fossil B. But then they will just say, "Ha, but where is the link between A and B and between B and C?" It's a goalpost that can be moved forever. It's a demand for an impossible level of evidence, a perfect chain with no links missing, which the messy reality of the fossil record can never provide. But in the last 20 years, we've gained a new tool that is even more powerful than fossils. Genetics. Our own DNA is a living record of our evolutionary past, and the genetic evidence for our connection to the rest of the animal kingdom, and particularly to other apes, is overwhelming. We share about 98.8% of our DNA with chimpanzees. This doesn't mean we are 98.8% chimp. It means that since our lineage is split from that common ancestor, only about 1.2% of our genetic code has changed differently. That small percentage contains all the instructions that make us human and them chimp. It's powerful evidence of a recent shared ancestor. But there's an even more specific, undeniable piece of evidence locked in our chromosomes. It's called human chromosome 2. A chromosome is a package of DNA. Humans have 23 pairs of them. All the other great apes, chimps, gorillas, orangutans have 24 pairs. If we share a common ancestor, where did that extra chromosome go? And where did their extra one come from? The answer is a fusion. At some point in our lineage, after the split from the chimp line, two of our ancestors' chromosomes fused together to form one. We know this because human chromosome 2 shows all the evidence of this ancient merger. Human chromosomes have special caps on their ends called telomeres, and they have a pinched-in section in the middle called a centromere. Human chromosome 2 has the normal telomeres at each end, as it should, but it also has telomere DNA right in the middle, exactly where the two ancestral chromosomes would have stuck together. It also has a second deactivated centromere, the remnant of the centromere from one of the original chromosomes. It's the genetic equivalent of finding two books that have been taped together to make one long book, but you can still see the back cover of the first book and the front cover of the second book stuck in the middle. It is a perfect smoking gun piece of evidence for our common ancestry with the other great apes. It is, in every sense of the word, a link. And it's not missing, it's inside almost every cell of your body. And then there's the ancient DNA I mentioned earlier. We have successfully extracted and sequenced the entire genomes of Neanderthals and Denisovans from tiny fragments of fossilized bone. This has changed everything. We can now compare their genes directly to ours. And when we do, we find their DNA in us. Most humans whose ancestry is from outside of Africa carry about 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA. There are people of Melanesian and Southeast Asian descent carry up to 5% Denisovan DNA. This is not a metaphor, this is a literal biological inheritance. It means our ancestors didn't just replace these other humans, they met them and had children with them. Those children and their descendants carried that DNA into the modern human gene pool. We are a hybrid species. We are a living, breathing testament to the connection between us and our closest extinct relatives. We are the link. So, have we found the missing link? Yes, we've found hundreds of them in the form of transitional fossils that beautifully illustrate the steps along our evolutionary journey. Tumai, Ardi, Lucy, Homo habilis, each one is a link. Each one tells a part of the story of how a small, tree-dwelling creature in Africa eventually gave rise to a species that would walk on the moon. But the real answer is that the question itself is the problem. It sends us searching for a mythical beast, a single half-and-half creature that never existed. The reality is so much more intricate and fascinating. It's a story of a branching bush, not a straight ladder. It's a story of diversity, of experimentation, of many different ways of being a hominin. It's a story of dead ends and surprising successes. The evidence is not missing. We have the bones. They show the slow, gradual changes in posture, in diet, in brain size. And we have the genes. They show, in a language more precise than any fossil, our exact relationship with our living and extinct relatives. The missing link isn't a single creature we need to find. It's the entire story that we've already uncovered. The link is the line you can draw from a 7-million-year-old skull in Chad to a 3.2-million-year-old skeleton in Ethiopia, to the tools of Homo habilis, to the migrations of Homo erectus, to the Neanderthal DNA inside of you. The link isn't missing. It's the story of us. And it's a better story than any myth.